Remodeled the kitchen like 2 or 3 years ago and finally getting to putting some wall paneling on this peninsula right here. You can see where I've cut in to adjust the plumbing back there. One thing I'm gonna have to do is fix my sin. This wall here of the cabinet's kind of sticking out, so to fix that, I'm gonna have to commit a couple more sins. You'll see what I'll do later just to make this corner square. Here's materials I'll be using. Got this wall paneling from all this stuff's from Lowe's. Loctite to glue the wall paneling to the wall. Got some baseboard, shoe molding for the bottom. Got this outside corner molding, obviously for the outside corner. Inside corner molding, this will go around the top underneath the counter. And then just in case I mess up my edges, I got some of this bead molding. We'll see how the edges turn out. I may not end up needing to use this. Also got some black paint for the trim to match this black color, and then just white paint for the baseboard, since all my other baseboards are white. Some of the tools I'll be using is circular saw, jigsaw, and my table saw to cut the wall paneling. 18 gauge crown stapler to fasten the paneling to the wall. I could also use 18 gauge brad nail, but I think the stapler will definitely have a little more grip on it. And then miter saw to cut all my trim pieces. Here I'm just removing the baseboard. I determined to leave the little piece on the side for now, but I end up taking it out later. So this end panel is kind of out of square. I'm just going to use this big framing square and line it up with the flooring, because the flooring's pretty square with the cabinets on the face side. And then just mark it with some tape. There we go. And that'll give me a line to reference so I can bump this end of the wall out and make it square. Alright, let's see how out of square we are. This is where I want to be. I've got 19 and a half. And then come to this corner. I've got just over 20 3/4, so 1.25 inches off. That's pretty bad, really bad. I did a terrible job putting this in and with this wall, making this wall too short, but hey, it was like my first big remodel. Paying for it now though. Alright, so I just ripped a piece of 2x4 at 1.25 inches. See how we did. So we had 19 and a half there. And we got just barely over 19 and a half. We'll call it good enough. So I'll fasten this one in, and then I'll put one every 4 or 5 inches and make it a little smaller as we get down to here. Not ideal. You kind of want a solid backing for wall paneling that's only 1/4 inch thick, but what can you do? Not much. Just using a 15 gauge nailer for this. see what our next one is. Go down a few, about right there. We got 20.5. So I'll just rip another piece at 1 inch. Got my next piece. And we're at 19.5. I'll put it there. Switching to my crown stapler with 1¼ inch staples. Because now since we're at this end panel, I don't want to blow any holes in my dishwasher. That wouldn't be a good day. A little bit of movement on the panel down here, but once I get the wall panel across here, everything will be all cohesive and together. Hopefully she'll look good in the end. Time to get the measurements for the wall panel. I'll just go ahead and try out this side one first. So you want to get 4 measurements. 29. Oof. Something's out. 28 3/4. And I can be a little more lenient for this because I'm putting baseboard on. I'll go 34. Just to make it easy. Make it just a little short so I won't have to struggle. It doesn't have to be super spot on since I'm putting the corner bead here, but you want to try to get it as close as possible so in the end it doesn't look horrible. Using a chalk line to mark my cut line, double check my measurements, and I just set the panel on top of a 2x4 so the blade can avoid hitting anything. You can set the depth on your circular saw. There's measurements on the back side of the blade guard. There's a little locking lever. You just loosen that and then you'll be able to move the base plate freely and then lock it back down and you're good to go. Didn't do too bad, fits pretty good. Before I nail it in, I'm gonna mark where these pieces of wood are so I know what to nail into. Then I got some Loctite adhesive, just putting it on the wood to help it stay on the wall. Before you start nailing, make sure it's nice and lined up. You don't want to have to rip it out and be pissed off. And then just go around the border, making sure everything's lined up. Once you go around the border, put some nails in through the middle, make sure it's nice and tight. Give it a good push with your hand. If it's loose, throw a nail in. We're looking nice and square. I don't know how well you'll be able to tell in the video, but she's on there, okay? Here I got all my trims set up to paint. I got some black paint to try to match the black in between on the wood panel. Instead of using the baseboard that's around my whole house, I'm deciding to switch to this just around where the wall panel is going to be. I think it'll look a little bit better on that wall panel versus the wide baseboard. So don't need to paint this. I'm using a soft bristle trim brush just to minimize the visible brush strokes in the paint. And then I got a couple ends taped off that I think I'm gonna try to leave white. Where it is at the front of the cabinet. I'll show that here a little bit later. I got the first coat of paint on the trim. It's definitely gonna need a second coat. Little trick, if you know you're gonna use your brush again a little later, you can just put a glove on it to keep it wet. Putting the panels here on my long side, I got the height cut for them. And now I kind of just want to see where I need to be. So this is my outside corner trim. And I want to make it symmetrical on this side and on this side. So I just put this trim up and get it about even on each side. So I got about half of the wood showing on each side. Unfortunately, some of my staples are going to be showing, but I'll patch those up. Hopefully it won't look too bad. And then once I know where that's going to sit, hopefully it'll stay up there. There we go. And I'll go down and get my measurement. 20 5/8. Oh man, a little off, 20 3/8. So let's see where this ends up. Probably doesn't matter. I would rather make it look better on the corner than down here on the end. But oh, it looks like I'm gonna get lucky. It's gonna end right here in this black section, so that's nice, I guess. Before I cut that piece on the end, I'll throw this piece up there so I know exactly where I need to cut it at. Now I do have plumbing in this wall, so I need to mark where it's at so I don't blow any nails in any pipes. I just put some tape on the floor, eyeballed it off where the sink is, so to avoid hitting any of those pipes. Nails shouldn't be that deep anyway, but just in case. Now I get to cut the hole for the outlet. As you can see, I'm making a mistake already measuring from the right side. It should measure from the left side because that's what the panel is going to butt up to. My hole for the outlet ends up being just a little bit off, but it works out. Since I won't be able to hide this cut edge, I'm going to use my table saw. It just makes a little bit cleaner of a cut than my circular saw does. Some of you may realize that my blade was set way too high. That's from me ripping my 2x4s and I didn't change it, but oh well, still got my fingers. Now I'm gonna measure and cut for the outlet. I'm gonna use my drill to make some holes for my jigsaw. So earlier I measured for the outlet. I just drew a picture on the wall in there and then took a picture with my phone. That makes it easy for me. And then make holes in the corners for my jigsaw blade and just cut that hole out. All right, let's see how I did with cutting out for the outlet. One thing I messed up on is I measured from this wall instead of measuring from the edge of this, because I want this piece to be butted up next to that. So I should have measured from here over for the outlet. Hopefully I'm close enough. We'll see what happens. Uh-oh. I have to trim some off the bottom or the whole thing to make it fit. All right, so I need a little more room over here, and instead of trimming a little bit off this and messing up this edge, I'm just gonna take my oscillator and cut a little bit of the wall out right here that I marked. Got a little bit in the eyeball. Should have had my safety glasses on. Next time. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, look at that. Tricks of the trade, baby. So I soiled it with this outlet cutout. It doesn't really catch on this edge here. Show you a little hack job trick. Wire nut. Mark the depth. And cut it. Then you got yourself a little spacer to put behind that screw. There we go. She's nice and tight. Got all the wall panel on. Now I just got to put the trim on, and I need to put another coat of paint on it, so I'm gonna do that, and then I'll have to let it dry. All right, starting with the trim, I'm gonna do the top first, and this is what I'm doing for the top. You want to make sure when you cut this it's orientated in the right way, so that when you put it on, the angles are where you want them. You know, it's not gonna look like this or anything crazy. So if you like to overthink things like me and want to make sure you're doing it right, just take a couple little scrap pieces and cut them, and make sure you're going to be cutting it at the right orientation to where it meets up where you want it. All right, so I got my measurement for my first piece. To get the right orientation, just think about how it's going to sit. So it's going to sit like this. So this part is going to be flat against that back fence of the saw. Let's go see how we did. So it looks like I cut it at the right angle, which is good, but I'm just a tad bit long, so I'm gonna go shave a hair off. Both pieces cut where I want them now. Shaved a little bit off of this one. Got this one cut good. But as you can see, when these are flat against the walls, there's this little gap here. I'm gonna show you what you can do before you put them on to make that gap nice and tight. This is Instant Bond. You got the glue and the accelerator. I've only been able to find this at Lowe's. But before you put the trim pieces on, you can use that to glue the corners together so that the gap is nice and tight. You want to make sure when you glue it, because this stuff dries, like it says, instantly. You want to make sure when you put these together with the glue that you put it together exactly where you want it. So you just start by putting glue on one side. Don't need very much. It will ooze out and could look ugly. So you got glue on one side, and then the other side, just put a little spray on there. And then I like to start, just meet up one side where you want it and then slowly close it to get it exactly where you want it, and hold it for maybe 5-10 seconds. You can see I got a little glue oozing out. That's gonna piss me off, but whatever. Now it's ready to nail on. I just start at the corner. Make sure, get it nice and tight on that corner. Put a nail on each side. And then just work your way, nailing the trim. There we go, I got the top on. Got my little baseboard on. Next is the quarter round. Over here, this is where I taped off to leave this end white to match it up with this. So I'm gonna have to tape this part off and then paint the rest of that black along with the quarter round. We'll see how it looks in the end. Quarter round is on. Now time for the corner piece here. That's all the trim. Now I just need to caulk the nail holes and probably this seam between the quarter round and the base, and then touch it up with paint. And yes, I know this quarter round is on upside down. Usually the long end goes on the wall, but the long end is on the floor for this because that's how it was when I started around the whole house. They had the long side against the floor, but it looks a little nicer when you get that long side against the wall. It makes it a little more slim. Everything is caulked. Got that seam between the base and quarter round caulked, and all the nail holes and staple holes in between all these whatevers. It's all done. All the paint spots touched up. Here's how this end turned out. Looks a little weird, but I think it's the best I could do.